Hello everybody. Today we are going to start with computer system and security issues 12.5. Let's begin. Security is an important issue for modern IT systems. Even though technology provides immense possibilities to safeguard organizations' computing infrastructure, there has been security lapses and security breaches which have cost the organization heavily. System administrator and security administrator have spent sleepless nights to safeguard organizations' data and computing infrastructure. One can think of organizations like airlines, railway and banks, which are heavily dependent on computing infrastructure and unavailability of system for few hours can create havoc. Organizations can't afford to underestimate the security issues that can affect their business operations. Degree of security 1. Number of security failures slash number of attempts to breach security. Implementation and security of systems and MIS. There may be security threats due to natural reasons such as earthquakes, cyclones, etc. Sometimes the threats are made by people. These may be due to riots, unrest, sabotage, etc. Whenever there is an attack, immediate reactive measures are to be taken. Also, one should study various controls to find out the people or reasons behind the attack. This can be done with the help of transaction logs, etc. These attacks basically become possible due to several drawbacks in the information system, such as lack of proper implementation of security protocols, etc. Such things are exploited by people who plan attacks. The entire situation surrounding attacks is depicted in figure 12.1. So here we can see, so you can check this figure, information security architecture. Okay, now we will see analysis of threat and risks. The security of any system should be commensurate with the risk involved. Threat and risk assessment involves identification of application threats to IS infrastructure, recognition of vulnerability, and probable loss calculation. In this context, it is necessary to identify the source of threat. Historically, an organization's computer systems were centrally located, and the management of issues related to it were responsibility of the computer center staff, and as such, security related issues were also the responsibility of computer center staff, whose focus were to make available the application on the centrally located computer as required. In comparison, today's computing infrastructure are far more diverse and complex to manage. Business information is dispersed. The source of threats can be either external or internal. Historically, virus has been the major potential external security threat, but as organizations are diversifying their activity over multiple locations and with evolution of new technology, it is difficult to perceive when an unauthorized intruder may try to hack upon organizations' vital information and cause damage. Internal security threats are more common, although the integrity of employee is checked before being inducted into the organization. Employee of an organization can pose serious threats to information security as they are closely associated with the system and know the vulnerabilities that can be targeted. Risk analysis. The common questions asked in evaluating the risks are given below. Are the risks such as fire, earthquakes, and the scope of their effects on the information system have made clear? Has the loss the organization would suffer from a halt or the like of the information system been analyzed? Is the time permissible for a recovery of operation and the order of priority of recovery being determined. Security policy underlines an organization's holistic approach to security issues. Organizations must possess a security policy in writing, which should address the following issues: authentication to see that the person is bona fide user of the resources, authorization privileges of the user or who can do what, information integrity. Is it possible that the end user can modify the information? Detection. Once the problem is identified, how it is handled and managed. Risk assessment and management. A thorough and proactive risk assessment is the first step in establishing a sound security system. This is the ongoing process of evaluating threats and vulnerabilities and establishing an appropriate risk management program to mitigate potential monetary losses and harm to an institution's reputation. Threats have the potential to harm an institution, while vulnerabilities are weaknesses that can be exploited. There are different approaches followed by organizations to analyze risks. However, ultimately, all the methods boil down to two types of approaches: quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative risk analysis. This approach, although difficult to implement, gives an idea about the amount of risk involved with the event. This basically employs two fundamental elements, that is, the probability of occurrence of the loss making event and probability of occurrence of the event. Estimated loss, potential loss due to the event into probability. Is it therefore possible to rank the events in order to estimate loss? But the problem associated with the quantitative approach is estimating the probability of occurrence of the event. Also, in some cases, the events are interrelated, making the probability calculation even more difficult. Notwithstanding above difficulty, many organizations have adopted and implemented this approach successfully. Qualitative risk analysis. The extent of the information security program should commensurate with the degree of risk associated with the institution's systems, networks, and information assets. For example, compared to an information only website, institutions offering transactional internet banking activities are exposed to greater risks. Further, real time funds transfers generally pose greater risk than delayed or batch processed transactions because the items are processed immediately. The extent to which an institution contracts with third party vendors will also affect the way the risk assessment has to be done. Performing the risk assessment and determining vulnerabilities. Performing a sound risk assessment is critical to establishing an effective information security program. The risk assessment provides a framework for establishing policy guidelines and identifying the risk assessment tools and practices that may be appropriate for an institution. Banks still should have a written information security policy, sound security policy guidelines, and well designed system architecture as well as provide for physical security. Employ education and testing as part of an effective program. When institutions contract with third party providers for information system services, they should have a concrete opinion about third party providers, quality of work, and loyalty of the clients. At the minimum, the security related clauses of a written contract should define the responsibilities of both parties with respect to data confidentiality, system security, and notification procedures in the event of data or system compromise. The institution needs to conduct a comprehensive analysis of the provider security program, including how the provider uses available risk assessment tools and practices. Institutions also should obtain copies of independent penetration tests run against the provider's system when assessing information security products. Management should be aware that many products offer a combination of risk assessment features and can cover single or multiple operating systems. Several organizations provide independent assessments and certifications of the adequacy of computer security products. Example: firewalls. While the underlying product may be certified, banks should realize that the manner in which the products are configured and ultimately used is an integral part of the product's effectiveness. If relying on the certification, banks should understand the certification process used by the organization certifying the security product. Other examples of items to consider in the risk assessment process include identifying mission critical information systems and determining the effectiveness of current information security programs. For example, vulnerability might involve critical systems that are not reasonably isolated from the internet and external access via modem. Up to date inventory listing of hardware, software, as well as network topologies is important in this process. Assessing the importance and business sensitivity of information for the likelihood of outside attacks or hacking and internal misuse of information. For example, organization could be harmed if human resource data, example, confidential personal information, were made public. The assessment process should identify systems that review the appropriateness of access controls and other security policy settings. Assessing the risks posed by service provider or business partner through electronic connections and internal IT infrastructure. The outsider may have poor access controls that could potentially lead to an indirect compromise of the organization's security system. Determining legal implications of security breaks and contingent liability concerns associated with any of the above factors. For example, if hackers successfully access a bank system and withdraw money fraudulently, the bank will be liable for damage incurred to the account holder. potential threats. Denial of service DOS, which can be described as any action that prevent a system from normal operation. It may be the unauthorized destruction, modification, or delay of service. DOS is common where the number of requests outnumber the maximum number of connections possible. Under such circumstances, legitimate users have to wait for a large amount of time for response to their request. Internet Protocol IP spoofing, which allows an intruder via the internet/intranet to effectively impersonate a local system's IP address in an attempt to gain access to the system. The system in this case may misinterpret the incoming connection as or originating from a trusted host. A Trojan horse program generally performs unintended destructive functions that may include destroying data, collecting invalid or falsifying data. Trojan horses can be attached to emails. Viruses are computer programs that may be embedded in other programs and have the capability to self-replicate. Once active, they may result in either non-destructive or destructive invalid outcomes in the host computer. The virus program may also move into multiple platforms, data files, or devices on a system and spread through multiple systems in a network or through emails to other systems. Recovering from disasters, natural and man made disasters, are inevitable. Earthquake, floods, fire, and terrorist attack can severely damage organizations' computing infrastructure. The disaster recovery plan is a document containing procedures for emergency response, extended backup operations, and recovery should a computer installation experience a partial or total loss of computing resources or physical facilities or of access to such facilities. Sorry, yes, it's facilities. The primary objective of this plan, used in conjunction with the contingency plans, is to provide reasonable assurance that a computing installation can recover from disasters, continue to process critical applications in a degraded mode, and return to a normal mode of operation within a reasonable time. A key part of disaster recovery planning is to provide for processing at an alternative site during the time that the original facility is unavailable. Contingency and emergency plans establish recovery procedures that address specific threats. These plans help prevent minor incidents from escalating into disasters. For example, a contingency plan might provide a set of procedures that define the condition and response required to return a computing capability to nominal operation. An emergency plan might be a specific procedure for shutting down equipment in the event of a fire or for evacuating a facility in the event of an earthquake. During a disaster, normal operating procedures may be significantly altered. Both personnel and systems will be expected to function under conditions that are not expected under normal day to day operations. Security remains a requirement, but techniques to apply it are altered to fit the contingency situation. In house backup. This level is the minimum acceptable and is mandatory for all installations and application systems. Define in detail all in-house backup procedures, the techniques used, files copied, frequency, etc. Alternate storage area. This level of protection is necessary for mission critical components is consists of off-site storage of at least one copy of all AIS files and database programs and procedures necessary to operate the high priority application systems either at the installation or at an alternate site of operation, including copies of contingency plans and related materials. The alternate storage area should be located in an area reasonably accessible uh, to the uh, installation, but not subject to the same degree of major threat as the site. It is recommended that, as a rule of thumb, the alternate storage area be no closer than 1 mile from the site. However, the distance may vary from location to location. Sorry, the disaster recovery toolkit. Okay. Oh my, oh my, 4 pages. Okay, let's do it fast. The Disaster Recovery Toolkit is a highly valuable collection of items and documents to assist in ensuring business continuity in the face of serious incident or disaster. Many organizations use these documents as a checklist and add elements specific to their need. Although they vary from organization to organization, they generally comprise the following: a contingency audit questionnaire, a dependency analysis document, questions and guidance, a business impact analysis questionnaire, an audit questionnaire for disaster recovery, or business continuity plan, a checklist, action list, and framework for disaster recovery. The toolkit is designed to help review the full spectrum of business continuity and disaster recovery issues. Planning for contingencies. Every business entity can and do experience events which can prevent it from normal function. The functions can range from natural events like flood, fire, earthquake, etc., or a man-made events like unauthorized access, serious computer malfunction, or various information security accidents. The very first step for contingency planning is to identify the contingency events covered and the appropriate actions for each. Contingency events usually refer to um, varying degrees of loss across six major asset categories: data, software, communications, hardware, personnel, and facility. The cause of the loss is dealt with in the risk assessment. The primary concern in the contingency plan is the degree of loss, impact on the mission, and techniques for coping. Contingency management tools address basic issues such as asset identification, location value, alternatives, replacement, and intangible costs, and most importantly, how long can the organization function without the assets. Since no asset is impervious to loss, the prudent leader will ensure that mechanisms are in place for a secure and rapid recovery. Our intent is to help managers break the cycle from normality to panic with crisis management. Contingency events: loss of data, to identify key data and the type or degree of loss slash damage that would be required for necessary recovery action. It can be done as follows: identify appropriate recovery plan and procedure procedures. Example: in-house backups, etc. The location of the required recovery files to identify procedures for recovery of the files indicated above and include them in the contingency plan. Loss of software to identify key software and the degree of criticality for necessary recovery action. It can be done as follows: identify the type of software, commercial slash in-house developed. Identify the location where backup copies are maintained. In case of an emergency procurement process, the authorized person for it and any alternate source from where operational copies can be obtained. Loss of communications to identify voice as well as data communications loss for necessary contingency plan and recovery action. It can be done as follows: identify alternate communication facility available such as radios, links, or mobile phones for interim measures. Whether there is any service agreement in place with any party to deal with contingency issues. To estimate recovery time. Loss of hardware. Inventory of required hardware must be maintained. For each hardware component, the loss which would require implementation of the contingency plan has to be found. It can be done as follows: identify the hardware component and what functionalities it supports. Identify any alternate piece of equipment that may be used as a substitute to the equipment and its degree of compatibility with the existing software. Whether the equipment is repairable, and if so, is the maintenance agreement in place to accomplish the repairs? What is the response time to repair the equipment? The estimated cost and time for procurement of replacement hardware in case it is not repairable. Whether there are any emergency procurement procedures for key items. Loss of personnel can result from employee leaving the organization, illness, death, family emergency, and a number of other events. The following steps can be taken to minimize this type of loss: to identify key personnel in the organization and what their involvement slash impact on major systems or programs or components. To identify substitutes for each personnel to handle such situation. Whether there are written procedures for every important function accomplished by the key personnel. Whether the substitutes use the same procedures periodically and do the assigned tasks. If alternates are not available within the organization, replacements must be obtained from outside sources. It must be ensured that there are sufficient procedures in place and establish a training slash orientation program to assign them the desired work to them. Loss of the facility. The loss of facility in general is due to some uh, catastrophic natural actions such as fire, flood, storm, earthquake, etc. However, a facility may become non-functional temporarily due to failure of power or any other events that could render the facility non-functional. If the facility is to be out of operation beyond the maximum tolerable time, identify the procedures that are necessary for moving to the alternative facility. To identify all necessary hardware, software, data, and personnel required for normal functioning at the alternative location. Notify the alternative location to all concerned. Any recovery procedure generally consists of following broad steps. Preparing contingency plan involves people from all activities. The people should understand their role in the event of disaster and should be ready to react to the situation. Following are the major steps involved in contingency planning. Develop the plan. The contingency plan is a detailed milestone to move the organization from a disruptive status to the status of normal operation. The role and responsibility of each employee and service provider are defined clearly in the event of disaster. Testing the plan. Once the plan is ready, it should be subjected to rigorous testing and evaluation. The plan should be initially tested in a simulated environment. Persons who would actually be involved in the event of a real disaster should test the plan. Maintaining the plan. Once the plan is created and tested, it must be kept updated so that it remains relevant and applicable to changed business environment. The changes in the business process must be reflected in the plan, and all changes in it should be communicated to all concerned. Now comes viruses. Viruses are one of the major security threats to computer system. The first computer viruses were written in mid 80s. The first virus written was a boot sector virus. Today there are several tens of thousands of viruses. Computer virus is nothing but a program that is loaded into your computer without your knowledge. This is only basic information, but what makes people fear from virus is the disaster impact on remaining programs in your machine due to this program. The difference between a computer virus and other programs is that viruses are designed to self replicate, usually without the knowledge of the user. Computer viruses are called viruses because they share some of the traits of biological virus. A computer virus passes from computer to computer like a biological virus passes from person to person. A computer virus must piggyback on top of some other program or document in order to get executed. Once it is running, it is then able to infect other programs or documents. Obviously, the analogy between computer and biological virus seems superficial, but there are enough similarities as the name suggests. Virus carries out instruction for replication. The effect of virus can vary from annoying messages to the disaster consequences. For example, the CIH virus, which attempts to overwrite the flash BIOS, can cause irreparable damage to certain machines. Superficially, it looks as a virus which can format hard disk is more damaging, but damage can be avoided by taking backups. Think of a virus which corrupts data by changing the numbers randomly on a spreadsheet application or changes plus to minus. This is certainly disastrous. Viruses can be hidden in programs availability on floppy disks or CDs, hidden in email attachments, or in material downloaded from the web. If the virus has to obvious payload, a user without antivirus software may not even be aware that a computer is infected. A computer that has an active copy of a virus on its machine is considered infected. The way in which a virus becomes active depends on how the virus has been designed. Example, macroviruses can become active if the user simply opens, closes, or saves an infected document. Prevention. The best way for users to protect themselves against viruses is to apply the following antivirus measures. Make backups of all software, including operating systems. So, if a virus attack has been made, you can retrieve safe copies of your files and software. Inform all users that the risk of infection grows exponentially when people exchange floppy disks, download web material, or open email attachments without caution. Have antivirus AV software installed and updated regularly to detect, report, and disinfect viruses. Visit sites which give information on the internet about latest virus, its behavior, and assess their potential threat. In case of doubt about a suspicious item that antivirus software does not recognize, contact your antivirus team immediately for guidance. Now comes concurrent audit techniques. Most of the audit techniques collect data after transaction is completed. So the outcome of the audit is usually useful only for the future. The outcomes may be used as precautionary measures for the future. In the case of concurrent audit techniques, data is collected while the transaction is in progress. This is very much useful for high risk transactions as they will be put on hold in case the audit desires so. If any other audit techniques is used, then such high risk transactions are processed, after which it will be found that these transactions are invalid. Need for concurrent audit techniques. The following are few reasons for the need of concurrent audit techniques: missing audit trails, need for continuously monitoring largely integrated and automated systems. The following are various concurrent audit techniques: an integrated test facility technique ITF. In this technique, the auditing software is embedded into the client software. Basically, what happens is that the test data of auditor is integrated and the same is processed with client's real life input data. ITF ensures that files of the clients are unchanged and any changes, if necessary, will be made only to the dummy files of the client's files. At the end, these dummy files are studied to know the discrepancies. The snapshot technique. In this technique, audit software is embedded in the software that is to be audited. It is embedded at those places where critical processing takes place. Then it takes a snapshot of the process before and after the critical processing. Now comes SCARF. It stands for System Control Audit Review File. It is one of the complex audit techniques. This technique will embed audit software in the host application. This will enable audit software to monitor the system's transactions uninterruptedly. The information that is collected during audit process will be stored in a special audit file known as SCARF master file. Usually, SCARF is used to collect the following information: application system errors, policy and procedural variances, system exceptions, statistical samples, snapshots, and extended records, data profiling, data for performance measurement, continuous and intermittent simulation techniques CIS. This technique will use the database management system to trap exceptions whenever there is a need for service. DBMS will inform the same to CIS. CIS will then carry out the suitable service. So here we come to the end till check your progress 3. Let's see the summary. Auditing IT system is a crucial activity to provide feedback to the system. The process of audit, the report can be a food for thought for improving the information system. It is surprising that only very few companies take this activity seriously. Audits not only bring out the potentially weak areas in a system but also provide inputs for future improvement. It also helps in improving business efficiency. Audit in generic sense refers to investigation of risks to computer as well as to processes and management of these risks through controls, proper procedures. Anyone who is doing this kind of assessment and submits a report in a sense is functioning as auditor. So here we come to the end. Uh, till then, keep exploring.